Long ago, the galaxy was full of stories about a dragon so strong that whole fleets feared her. They said her wings could block the light of suns. They said her fire could melt even the hardest metal. But time passed and the galaxy turned against her. Armies came with weapons that screamed louder than thunder. They did not kill her, but they broke her body. They hunted her until she was too tired to fight, and then they left her, silent and filthy, hidden in shadows where no one wished to go. Now her name is spoken only in whispers. Some say she is dead, others say she is cursed. Few dare to fly near the dark sector where her lair is buried. Ships that pass too close often vanish, and only fragments of metal drift back through space. No one asks too many questions, no one cares anymore. The galaxy has forgotten her. On a quiet green planet far from the busy trade routes, a human farmer worked alone. His days were simple. He planted crops, he cared for animals. He repaired old machines with rough hands. He did not dream of space battles or ancient dragons. He only wanted peace, but fate does not care what people want. One evening as the red sun sank low, the farmer followed his animals into the hills. The ground there was dry and cracked. The air smelled of dust and iron. He had always avoided those hills because the locals called them cursed. But that day one of his animals ran too far and he chased it step by step, until the shadows grew deep. Then he heard it. A breath not human, not animal, but heavy like a mountain sighing. The farmer froze, his heart beat hard in his chest. He thought of turning back, but something made him stay. Slowly he moved forward, and in the fading light he saw her. The dragon lay half buried in stone and ash. Her wings were torn and folded. Her scales were thick with dust and filth. Her claws, once sharp, were dull like broken swords. She looked less like a monster and more like a dying creature waiting for the end, yet her eyes glowing faintly in the dark still held power. They watched him. Silent and endless, the farmer's throat turned dry. He wanted to run, but his legs would not move. Fear wrapped around him like chains. He expected her to roar, to strike, to burn him alive. But the dragon only breathed, slow and heavy. The sound was sad, not angry, he thought. Why is she not killing me? Why is she here, alone and filthy? His mind shouted at him to escape, but his heart whispered something different. He felt her sadness like cold air, and it touched him more than fear did. The dragon's chest rose and fell. Every breath sent dust floating into the air. For a moment the farmer thought she might already be dead. Then her eye blinked, slow and tired. It was not the blink of a beast, but of something that had seen too much. The farmer stepped back. His heel hit a rock and the sound echoed. The dragon's eye followed him, glowing brighter for a second. He froze again. The silence stretched long. His fear grew until he could not bear it. Then something strange happened. The dragon lowered her massive head just slightly. Not to strike, not to bite, but to look closer. Her movement was careful, as if she feared he might run. It was not the action of a monster. It was the action of something forgotten, something broken. The farmer's breath shook. He whispered without thinking, though no one was there to hear. "You're not going to hurt me, are you?" The dragon did not answer. She only watched. The sun sank deeper and shadows swallowed the hills. The world grew quiet except for the dragon's heavy breathing. The farmer knew he should leave. He knew no one would believe him if he told this story. But his feet stayed rooted to the ground. He could not turn away from her. The galaxy had abandoned her, left her filthy and alone. But here, on this quiet evening, a single human farmer had found her, their eyes locked, silence stretching between them like a bridge. In that silence, the farmer felt something he had never felt before. Not fear, not pity, but connection. And then, just as he thought the moment would break, the dragon's glowing eyes narrowed slightly, as if she was listening to something beyond words. The air grew colder. A shiver ran through the farmer's body. He felt that something important had begun, though he did not yet understand it. The stars shone above, bright and sharp. But down in the hills a secret waited. The dragon, the ancient filthy beast, no longer roared, she no longer fought, she only breathed. Silent and watching, and the farmer, trembling in the dark, could not look away. He did not know it yet, but his life had changed forever. For in that forgotten place, under the eyes of a creature the galaxy had abandoned, a story of silence, sorrow, and strange hope had just begun. The farmer could not sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the dragon's glowing stare. It was not the wild fire of a beast, it was the heavy silence of something too broken to speak. He lay awake listening to the wind against his house, wondering if she was still breathing out there in the hills. At dawn, he told himself to forget, to farm his fields, to keep his head down like always. But his hands shook when he touched the soil, and his mind drifted again and again to the quiet eyes in the darkness. Finally, he threw down his tools and walked back to the cursed hills. His heart pounded, each step heavier than the last. The ground was still cracked, the air still sharp with iron dust. He moved carefully like a thief, though there was nothing to steal. When he reached the hollow where she lay, he froze. The dragon was still there. Her vast body had not moved much. Her head rested on the stone like a mountain fallen. Her scales were so dirty that birds perched on her without fear. The farmer swallowed hard. This was madness, he told himself. No one in the galaxy would come near her, yet here he was, a simple man with nothing but rough hands and stubborn curiosity. He took one step closer, then another. Each time her eyes followed him, glowing softly in the dim light. The silence between them was alive, heavy like a storm before lightning. The farmer lifted a trembling hand as if to greet her, though she was too far to touch. The dragon shifted slightly, a low groan rising from deep within her chest. The ground vibrated under his boots. He thought she would rise and destroy him. But she did not. She only watched, he whispered. "Why are you so quiet?" His voice cracked in the still air. The dragon blinked slowly. Her eyes seemed to shine brighter for a moment, but no words came. The farmer had heard stories of dragons roaring loud enough to split ships, but this one spoke only in silence. Her breath came out heavy and ragged, dust lifting from the ground with each exhale. He realized then that she was not only filthy, she was weak, broken. Courage crept into him, the strange courage of a man too tired of fear. He stepped closer until he stood near her jaw. The air was hot there, carrying the smell of ash and old fire. He looked up and saw scars between her scales, long black marks like wounds that had never healed. The galaxy had not just abandoned her, it had tried to erase her. The dragon's head lowered just a little, her eye larger than his whole body. He saw himself reflected in that glowing surface, small, fragile, unimportant. Yet she did not crush him, she only breathed. The farmer reached into his pack and pulled out a flask of water. His hand shook so badly he nearly dropped it. Slowly he poured some on the dusty stone in front of her. The water hissed, dark grime running into the cracks. For a moment he felt foolish. What good was a little water for such a giant? Then the dragon's eyes shifted, her nostrils flared, she leaned closer. A wave of heat pressed over him as her breath rolled out. He thought she might swallow him whole, but instead she only watched the water drip. Something stirred in her gaze, not anger, not hunger, but something older. A memory, perhaps, of clean rivers, of rain on scales, of times before the galaxy turned cruel. The farmer whispered again, "You want me to help you?" His words shook. But the silence after felt like an answer. A long pause followed, broken only by her heavy breathing. Then, with a sound like stone sliding against stone, the dragon lowered her head fully to the ground. Her jaw touched the dirt not far from his boots. The earth trembled. Birds fled from the nearby cliffs. The farmer could hardly believe it. A dragon bowing, not in surrender, but in trust. She was letting him near. He took another step. The air vibrated around her massive body. He reached out his hand, not to touch her scales, and he dared not, but to let her see. To let her know he meant no harm. His heart hammered so loudly he feared she could hear it. And then, in that strange silence, the bond began. No words, no fire, no roar. Only a broken dragon and a simple farmer, staring at each other as the sun bled into the horizon. The galaxy had abandoned her, but this man had not. His choice was small, his hands rough. Yet his courage was greater than all the fleets that once hunted her. In the deep silence of the hills, something ancient stirred, a beginning, fragile as the first drop of water on dry earth. The dragon's eyes closed slowly, not in death but in rest, and the farmer knew somehow that she had allowed him to stay. What he did not know was that far above, beyond the stars he could not see, machines had already begun to listen. Strange signals moved through the void. The galaxy, which had forgotten her, was starting to remember, and soon the silence would break. The next day, the farmer returned to the hills. He told himself it was foolish, that he had no reason to come back. But his feet carried him anyway, drawn by something he did not understand. He brought buckets of water, old cloths and nothing else. He did not bring weapons. For he already knew weapons would mean nothing here. The dragon lay in the same hollow as before, silent and heavy. Her body looked like a broken mountain covered in ash, her wings still folded in ruins. Her eyes opened slowly as he approached, glowing dim like tired lanterns. The farmer placed the buckets on the ground. His hands shook as he dipped the cloth into the water. He stared at her massive jaw. At the grime packed between the scales, he thought of turning away. But then he remembered her lowering her head the day before. She had given him trust, fragile but real. And he could not waste it. He stepped closer. His boots sank in the dust. The dragon's breath rolled over him like hot wind from a furnace. Her chest rose and fell. The sound was deep and endless. Slowly he reached out with the wet cloth and pressed it against her scale. The dirt cracked and slid away, dark streaks running down her neck. The farmer wiped again, harder this time, and more filth came off beneath it. The scale shone faintly, not bright but alive. He stared at it, stunned. She was not only filthy, she was hiding something underneath. The dragon made no move to stop him. She only watched, her eye half closed. Her silence was heavy but not threatening. It was the silence of someone waiting. The farmer cleaned more, each stroke slow, careful. The cloth turned black with dirt. The water in the bucket darkened as he worked. He saw things he had not noticed before. Between the scales were deep scars, some long as his arm burned into her flesh. They were not marks of time. They were wounds made by weapons. Weapons of the galaxy. The farmer paused, his chest grew tight. He imagined fleets of ships, beams of fire, storms of metal tearing at her body. He imagined her once proud wings torn by endless battles, and he imagined her silence, not chosen, but forced. The galaxy had not just abandoned her. It had tried to erase her. The dragon's eye shifted, her gaze met his. For a moment he thought she could see his thoughts. She blinked slowly and a rumble rose deep in her chest. It was not a growl. It was something softer, a sound of memory, of pain too old for words. The farmer dipped the cloth again and kept cleaning. He whispered as he worked, though he knew she could not answer. They did this to you, didn't they? They hurt you. And then they left you here. The dragon did not move, but her breathing changed, a long, slow exhale that carried dust into the air. It sounded almost like a sigh. Hours passed as the farmer worked, bucket after bucket. He cleaned the filth from her jaw, from her neck, from her shoulders. Beneath the dirt, her scales were not just strong. They were beautiful. They caught the light in faint glimmers, shining like hidden stars. The farmer's arms ached, his back bent. His skin burned from the heat of her body. But he did not stop. Something inside him had taken hold. Stronger than fear, stronger than reason. He wanted to give her back what the galaxy had stolen, even if only a little. Then, as he wiped away a thick patch of grime near her throat, the ground trembled. At first he thought it was her moving, but then he realized it was something else. A low hum spread through the air, faint but sharp. The dragon's eyes snapped open wide. Glowing brighter than before, she lifted her head slightly, the earth cracking beneath her jaw. Her nostrils flared as if she smelled something unseen. The farmer froze, cloth dripping in his hand. Above the hills, high in the sky, a light blinked, faint but steady. It was not a star, it was a signal. The farmer's heart dropped. He knew that light. It was the mark of ships, machines that watched, scanners that searched. The galaxy was listening. The dragon let out a sound then. The first true sound he had heard from her. A low groan that rolled like thunder through the hollow. The birds scattered, the ground shook. The farmer stumbled back, fear rising in his chest, but he saw her eyes, and in them he did not see rage, he saw warning. She knew they were being watched. The hum in the air grew louder. The blinking light above sharpened. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy had noticed her again. The farmer stood frozen between buckets of water and a mountain of scarred scales. His breath came fast, his mind screamed at him to run. But something inside whispered, no, not now. Not when she finally trusted you. The dragon's head lowered again, closer than ever before, her glowing eyes fixed on him. There was no fire, no roar, only silence heavy as stone. And in that silence he understood. She was asking him something, not in words, but in the way she watched him. Would he stay? Or would he run like the rest of the galaxy had? The farmer's hands tightened around the cloth. His body shook with fear, but he did not move back. He dipped the cloth again into the dark water and pressed it once more against her scarred scale. The dragon closed her eyes slowly. The hum in the air grew sharper. The signal above blinked faster. The galaxy knew. The ancient dragon was no longer forgotten, and the farmer, a man of dirt and silence, had just tied his fate to hers. Word of the dragon spread faster than fire, not by the mouths of people, but by the cold whispers of machines. The signal above the farmer's hills had already reached the stars. It moved through satellites, through listening posts, through the quiet ears of fleets hidden in deep space. The galaxy, which had once forgotten her, now stirred with fear. The farmer knew nothing of this when he rose the next morning. His hands were rough from work, his eyes heavy from no sleep. Yet his mind was filled only with the dragon. He gathered more water, more cloth, and returned to her. He thought of her scars, her heavy breathing, her quiet trust. He thought of her glowing eyes that had asked him without words to stay, but far away. On warships blacker than the void, alarms were ringing. Commanders looked at old data they had buried long ago. The filthy dragon, they whispered. Their faces turned pale. Some wanted to destroy her at once. Others argued she should remain forgotten. But fear is louder than reason. Soon fleets began to move. The dragon felt it before the farmer did, as he cleaned the dirt from her giant wings. She stirred, her nostrils flared, her scales shivered with tension. Her eyes opened wide, glowing like molten gold. The farmer stopped, staring up at her. "What is it?" he whispered. She did not answer, but her head lifted. Her gaze turned to the sky. The farmer followed her look, but saw nothing except clouds drifting. Still, a cold shiver ran down his spine. He felt something unseen pressing against the world. That night, as the farmer tried to rest, he saw lights in the sky, not stars, not meteors, but steady, moving dots, too many, too ordered. His breath caught in his throat. He knew then that ships were coming. He had no telescope, no machine to scan, but he felt it in his bones. The villagers near the hills noticed too. They whispered of cursed fire, of watchers above. Some began to pack their belongings, planning to leave before trouble arrived. The farmer heard them and felt fear grow inside him. But when he thought of leaving, his mind returned to the dragon. He remembered her silence, her scars, her bowing head. Could he abandon her now, as the galaxy once had? He went to her again the next day. The dragon lay still, but her eyes followed him. He spoke softly, though he knew she might not understand. "They're coming, I can feel it. They want you gone, maybe they want you dead. Maybe worse." The dragon's head lowered slowly. Her gaze locked on him. Then for the first time, a sound came from her throat. Not a roar, not a growl, but broken words. A voice dry and cracked with age. "Name," she whispered. The farmer froze. His whole body went stiff. He thought he had imagined it. "What?" he asked, his voice trembling. Her eyes glowed brighter. Her mouth opened just enough to release a deep, fractured sound. "Name," she said again, louder this time. The farmer's heart pounded. She was speaking after centuries of silence. He stepped closer, his lips parted. "I am Daniel," he whispered. The dragon's eyes blinked slowly. She repeated the sound. "Dan." The word was heavy in her throat, as if it hurt to shape, yet it came, soft but real. The farmer nearly wept, not from fear but from wonder. He had given her something the galaxy had never asked. His name, she had taken it, spoken it, carried it in her broken voice. But far above, the fleets drew nearer. Their machines tracked every spark of her heat, every tremor of her breath. Commanders sharpened their orders. "Approach in silence. Surround the world if she rises, burn her again." The farmer did not know the scale of what was coming. He only felt the ground shake as the dragon stirred. Her wings shifted, the broken bones groaning. Dust fell like rain from her scales. She lifted her head fully for the first time. A shadow of her old strength passed through the air. The farmer whispered, "You are waking." "Aren't you?" The dragon looked at him, her eyes no longer dull. A faint fire flickered within them. She said nothing more, but she did not need to, he understood. She was no longer only waiting, she was remembering. That night the sky filled with streaks of light. Ships entering orbit, they moved like hunters circling prey. Their shadows crossed the moon, the villagers ran in fear. But the farmer stood on the hill, staring upward, his fists clenched. His heart heavy, the dragon rose behind him, her body towering, her scales still dirty but shining faintly in places he had cleaned. Her eyes glowed brighter than the ships above. The farmer felt her breath at his back, hot and endless. He whispered, "They're here for you." And in the silence that followed, the dragon bent her neck low again, her mouth close to his ear. and she whispered the word she had carried from his lips. Daniel. The sound rolled through him like thunder. His fear melted, replaced with something fierce and unshakable. He turned his eyes back to the sky, his voice steady, then let them come. Above, the hunter fleet spread their wings of metal. Below, an ancient dragon and a human farmer stood together. For the first time in centuries, she was not alone, and the galaxy, trembling at its own memory, prepared for war. The sky burned with ships. Dark shadows crossed the sun. The villagers who had not already fled now hid in fear, staring upward at the endless metal. They knew war was near. They knew their small world had been noticed by giants. Daniel stood on the hill where he had first found her. His heart beat like a drum. His hands shook. But he did not run. Behind him the dragon stirred, her massive body lifting from the ground, dust rolling down her scales like falling sand. The fleet spoke first. Their voices came through machines that echoed across the land. People of this world, they said, cold and sharp. The ancient dragon has been found. She is a danger to all life. Surrender her at once. Step aside or be destroyed, the villagers wailed. Some begged Daniel to give her up. She will bring only death, they cried. The galaxy abandoned her for a reason. Do not tie us to her curse, but Daniel did not move. He turned his face to the sky and shouted, his voice small against the thunder of ships. She is no monster, she is broken, she is alive. You will not take her. The commanders of the fleets laughed. Their voices cruel. A farmer dares to stand against the galaxy. Fool, do you know what she is? She burned cities, she shattered moons. Her silence is not sorrow. It is a weapon waiting to awaken. Daniel looked back at her. His heart heavy, he saw her watching him, her golden eyes wide. He saw scars running across her chest and wings. He saw dust still clinging to her scales. He whispered to her, Do not listen, I have seen you, I know your pain. You are more than what they say, the dragon breathed out. A sound like fire trapped in stone, the air grew hot. Sparks glimmered along her scales. For the first time since her fall, flames flickered between her teeth. Not wild, not raging, but rising. Daniel's eyes widened. You are healing, he whispered. Her wings shifted, broken bones stretching. A groan echoed as dust fell in clouds. The villagers gasped in fear. Some dropped to their knees. Others fled, but Daniel stayed, his eyes filled not with terror, but with awe. The fleets moved closer. Weapons lit the sky. Surrender, they ordered again. Last chance, farmers, step away, Daniel shouted back. No, you hunted her, you scarred her, you left her to die in silence. I will not step aside. The commanders grew cold. Then burn with her, they said. The ships turned their weapons downward. Lines of fire glowed across the sky. The earth trembled under the energy building above. Daniel clenched his fists, his throat dry. He whispered, If this is death, I choose it here beside her. The dragon moved. Her body rose higher, her neck arched, her wings stretched wide, broken but defiant. Her scales glowed faintly where Daniel had cleaned them, shining like stars beneath the dirt. Her eyes burned bright. Her voice broke the silence once more. Daniel, she whispered. The farmer looked up at her. His heart steady, he nodded. I am here. The fleets fired. Beams of light tore down from the heavens. The ground shook, mountains split, villages cracked under the force. But the dragon roared, not with fire, but with power rising from her ancient chest. The roar rolled through the land and into the sky, a sound so deep that ships trembled, a sound so old it carried memory. The beams struck her wings. They bent but did not break. Fire rose from her throat, not wild destruction but controlled flame. It cut through the first wave of weapons, melting them into sparks that rained harmlessly across the fields. Daniel shielded his eyes. The villagers screamed. The fleets recoiled in shock. Impossible, the commanders cried. She should not have strength. But the dragon was rising, not to destroy, but to stand. Her silence had ended, her power was waking. She did not lash out with hate. She did not burn the villages below. She only met the fire of the fleets with fire of her own. Daniel stared, his mouth dry. He whispered to himself, She does not want war. She wants freedom. The fleet circled tighter. More ships pouring down. The commanders barked orders. Do not hold back, end her, end them both. The dragon turned her head toward Daniel. Her breath hot, her eyes fierce. For a moment he felt as if the whole galaxy was watching through her. Waiting for his choice, he shouted to her, You are not alone. Not anymore. If you must rise, rise with me. The dragon roared again. Her wings cracked the sky. Her flames blazed brighter. For the first time in centuries, she took to the air. She lifted her heavy body from the ground, breaking stone beneath her claws. Her shadow spread across the land like night falling. The villagers cried out, some in fear, some in wonder. Daniel stood beneath her, dust and wind tearing at his clothes. His heart burned with pride. He whispered, "Yes, rise. Show them who you are." Above, the fleets tightened their circle, preparing their deadliest weapons. But deep within the dragon, something older stirred. Her silence was broken, her power reborn, and the galaxy trembled. For the ancient dragon, once filthy and forgotten, now rose again, not as a monster of destruction, but as a survivor of sorrow. And with her rose a human farmer who refused to abandon her. The rising fire had begun. The sky turned into fire. The hunter fleets closed in from every side. Their ships gleamed like knives against the stars. Their weapons glowed with the power of suns. The ground below shook as energy cut across the horizon. Villages burned, mountains split. The galaxy had come to erase what it feared. But the dragon did not meet them with wild fury. She rose into the sky with Daniel at her side. Her massive wings beat against the smoke, broken yet strong enough to lift her. Her roar shook the air. But after the roar there was silence. Silence more powerful than any weapon. Daniel held tight to the ridge of her neck, the heat of her scales burning through his hands. He had no armor, no shield, only trust. The fleets fired again, beams of light tearing toward them. But the dragon twisted, her body moving with impossible grace. She cut through the attacks, fire curling from her jaws not to destroy but to shield. Her flames wrapped around Daniel like a wall, protecting him from the blasts. The commanders watched in disbelief. "She is holding back," they whispered. Why? They had expected a storm of death. They had expected a monster, but what they saw was something else. A creature fighting not to slaughter, but to endure. The dragon dove through the fleets. Her wings slicing the clouds, fire burst from her throat, but she aimed only at weapons, only at machines, not at the fleeing escape pods. Not at the villages below. She spared lives. Where once she would have ended them, the galaxy trembled. Because mercy from a dragon was more terrifying than fire, Daniel saw it all. His heart pounded. He shouted against the wind, "You are not what they think. You are more than their fear." The dragon heard him. Her eyes blazed. For a moment he thought he saw sorrow there, deep and endless. She had burned worlds once, yes, but she was not burning them now. She was changing. The fleets panicked, their commanders screamed, "Do not stop, crush her, crush them both. The dragon must not rise again." Dozens of ships swarmed, weapons locking. The sky became a cage of fire. The dragon spread her wings wide. Her body glowed from within, fire licked at her scars. But she did not scream. She held her silence. A silence so heavy it seemed to swallow the noise of war. Daniel clung to her, trembling, his mind filled with terror but also awe. And then something strange happened. The dragon opened her mouth as if to release a storm, but no sound came. Instead, a wave of silence burst from her. It spread through the fleets, cutting off their machines, cutting off their voices for a heartbeat. The galaxy itself went quiet. Ships drifted powerless, weapons dimmed. Commanders cried out in fear. What is this? What has she done? Daniel felt it too. The silence pressed into his chest, deep and endless. It was not empty. It was full of meaning, full of pain and memory. He saw flashes in his mind, not his own. But hers. He saw the fleets that once hunted her, the cities that once cursed her. He saw her alone, broken, left in the dirt. Tears filled his eyes. He whispered, You are showing them, aren't you? Showing them your truth." The dragon's eyes burned like suns. She looked down at the fleeing villagers, at the trapped ships. She could have ended them all in one breath, but she did not. She chose silence. She chose restraint. The galaxy had never feared her fire. They had feared what they could not understand. Now they were facing something greater than destruction. They were facing her choice. Daniel's heart ached. He shouted against the wind, "Yes, show them. Show them you are more than their hate. But mercy has a cost." The fleets recovered. Some ships broke free of the silence. Their greatest weapon, the eternal blade, began to descend. It was not a ship like the others. It was vast, longer than mountains, forged to kill only one creature, her. The villagers screamed as its shadow covered the land. The commanders roared with triumph. "The eternal blade will finish her. Nothing survives its strike." Daniel stared upward, his blood ran cold. He saw the dragon's eyes narrow, her wings trembled. He knew she had felt its fire before. He knew the scars on her body had come from that very blade. She growled low, not in rage but in sorrow. Her silence broke for a moment and she whispered his name again. Daniel, her voice cracked. Ancient and broken, Daniel tightened his grip. His voice fierce. I am here, I will not leave you, not now. Not ever. The dragon rose higher, her flames glowing brighter. Her silence humming in the air like thunder waiting to strike. The eternal blade split the clouds, its weapon glowing brighter than the sun. The galaxy held its breath. For the war of silence was no longer about fleets, no longer about fear. It was about a dragon who chose mercy, and a human farmer who chose her. Together they faced the weapon of eternity. Together they prepared to make their stand. And as the blade descended, the galaxy trembled, knowing that whatever happened next would change the stars forever. The eternal blade filled the sky. It was not just a ship, it was a weapon built from fear. Its surface glowed with light stolen from dying suns. Its edge shimmered with energy sharp enough to cut a planet in half. The fleets pulled back, leaving space for the blade to strike. They believed the end had come. Daniel held tight to the dragon's scales. His heart thundered. He felt her chest heave beneath him. Her body trembled, not from weakness but from memory. The scars across her wings burned with old fire. He knew this weapon had nearly ended her once before. The voice of the commanders spread across the world. Cold and merciless. Dragons surrender and the human will live. Resist and both of you will die. The galaxy has no mercy for you. Daniel's breath caught. His stomach twisted. The words stabbed into him. They were offering him life if he betrayed her. He could step away. He could live as a farmer again. He could forget the dragon, forget the scars, forget the silence. But he looked into her eyes, glowing gold, full of sorrow yet full of hope. He remembered the day he first saw her, broken and filthy in the dirt. He remembered her lowering her head to him. He remembered her whispering his name. His lips trembled. No, he whispered. His voice grew stronger. I will not betray you, not now. Not ever. The dragon's eyes widened. Her breath rolled hot over him, she whispered back. Daniel, her voice cracked. But her spirit rose, she was not alone anymore. The eternal blade descended. Its weapon flared, brighter than day. Villages shook, oceans boiled, mountains cracked. The galaxy held its breath, Daniel shouted, his voice carried by wind and fire. Do it, dragon. Not for revenge, not for hate, but for freedom. Show them what you truly are. The dragon's wings spread wide. Her body arched, flames lit her scales. But it was not ordinary fire. It was fire mixed with silence. Fire that did not roar but hummed. Fire that carried not destruction, but truth. The eternal blade struck. A beam of energy shot down like the hand of a god. The dragon roared once, her last roar, and then silence followed. Silence so deep that the world seemed to stop. The beam met her, but instead of breaking her, it met the silence she carried. The silence swallowed it, bent it, turned it. The energy shattered like glass in water. The sky split open. Ships spun out of control. Commanders screamed. Daniel clung to her as light and silence burned together. He felt her power rise through his bones. Through his blood. It was not anger, it was not hatred. It was something else, something greater. The dragon released her fire not to kill but to heal. The flames spread across the sky, touching ships, but not burning them. Instead, weapons melted harmlessly. Controls froze, engines cooled. The fleets were disarmed, stripped of their power, left adrift. The eternal blade cracked, its edge dulling, its light fading. It fell back into the void, broken not by rage but by silence. The galaxy watched in awe. The monster they had feared for centuries had not destroyed them. She had spared them. She had chosen mercy. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. He shouted into the wind, "Yes, this is who you are. Not their weapon, not their curse, you are more." The dragon descended slowly. Her wings folding, her body heavy. She landed in the valley where it all began. Dust rolled in waves around her. She lowered her head, her eyes glowing soft. She whispered his name one last time, Daniel. The farmer touched her scale. His voice quiet. You are free now. They will never forget you again. Not as a monster, but as hope, far above. The fleets drifted in silence, their commanders shaken, their soldiers trembling. None dared to fire again. They had seen her power. They had seen her choice, and it was mercy. The galaxy would never see dragons the same way. It would never see humans the same way. For one farmer had stood when all others fled. One man had refused to betray, and because of him, the ancient dragon had risen not as fire, but as light. The villagers came out slowly from hiding. Their eyes wide, some still afraid, some full of wonder. They whispered of what they had seen. A dragon who did not destroy, a human who stood beside her. Daniel stood on the hill as the sun rose, his clothes torn, his hands burned. But his spirit unbroken, he looked at her. The dragon who had been forgotten. The dragon who had been abandoned. The dragon who had been filthy with sorrow. Now she shone in silence, clean at last. The galaxy had abandoned her, but a human farmer had not, and that choice had changed the stars forever.